Good evening. This is the Spiritual Uplift midweek from the Center for Spiritual Living, Pleasant Valley. I'm Pamela Bailey. I'm the lead practitioner at that center. That means I am a practitioner of religious science, and I have been that for quite some time. So I'm happy to be here and to present some thoughts for our midweek spiritual uplift. My intention tonight is to look at what causes us not to live a full and fulfilling life and tell you some stories illustrating that and embracing who you truly are. Brene Brown, the woman who wrote the book, is a researcher and a speaker whose initial reputation was around resiliency and shame. She actually reported on these things. She did TED Talks. She was on Oprah's Super Soul Sunday. She's written several books, including 5 New York Times bestsellers. And she's been a clinical social worker and a university professor. I'm actually planning to teach a book, to teach a class based on this book beginning in December. It will be interactive and it will be held at the center, laws allowing, or online or both. So, what I would like to do is I would like to do it interactively and in person because that makes it more real. So, what I'm hoping is that this talk will leave you interested and looking to find out more about this and to find out how it could actually have you live a fuller and more satisfying life right here and right now. The bottom line of all of this is we do not have to be perfect to be enough, to be worthy, to be lovable, and to belong exactly as we are. I could stop there, but this is a 20-minute talk, so I'm continuing. So, what does it take to live an authentic and wholehearted life? Brene Brown loves alliterations as much as I do, and she calls for action as the essential qualities of such a life. Mankind has lived in communities since the earliest of times, and there seems to be a primal need to connect to other humans. Courage is required to get past our fears of being not enough or being rejected and to speak authentically from our hearts. That actually is what courage originally meant, which is to speak authentically from the heart. And last but not least, compassion is required for ourselves and for others, especially from someone who's close enough to know us really well and still love and accept us. Each of us, exactly as we are right here and right now, is whole, complete, and perfect, created by the divine. It may not look that way to us as we compare, judge, and make ourselves wrong. As the wonderful Reverend Betty Ann Brennan often said, my life is unfolding perfectly, no matter what. There is a transformational saying that we are whole, complete, and perfect, and there are barriers to expression. We came here to learn and to love and to live full lives, not to be perfect. I remember recognizing my mother's perfectionism as I was learning about how life works as a young adult. And I saw that perfectionism limits how we live our lives. There's a wonderful body of work known as radical forgiveness. Its founder, Colin Tipping, has this wonderful saying, you spot it, you got it. The woman who I would have assured you that I did not have perfectionist tendencies. The woman who started the center had a saying, perfectionism leads to procrastination, leads to paralysis. Honest self-inquiry has confirmed this assessment. That realization is what intrigued me about this book and has me wanting to lead the class and the discussion. And I want to live my remaining years free and unlimited by any need for perfection. So, how can letting go of who I think I'm supposed to be and embracing who I actually am have me live a wholehearted life? My curiosity about that and what I've discovered so far is what I want to share with you tonight. I'm going to look at the power of love, belonging, and being enough, and what gets in the way briefly, and then share 2 of her 10 guideposts. My goal is that you leave with some new insights, but more than that, a deep sense of your own value and some ideas that might provide access. We are all aware of our need to belong for physical well being and safety, but also for our emotional and spiritual well being. There's much in our society that denies this and makes it difficult to feel like we belong, yet to be connected is the most basic of human needs. Babies who are not held can even die, and this is called failure to thrive. That is how important it is. Our society fosters a belief that we need to do it ourselves. It's weakness to need help from others. These attitudes definitely get in the way of belonging. I remember a young girl years ago gushing about this boy she had a terrific crush on. She didn't want him to know how she really was because he might not like it. Well, gosh, what if they got in a real relationship? He would discover how she really was, and it might be far worse. There is yet one more important and surprising aspect of compassion, and that is setting boundaries and holding people accountable. This is surprising, but if we look in our society where we have a lot of blaming and shaming and self-righteous anger, we can see that it really is honoring and respecting the other person to hold them accountable and to set boundaries. If we are feeling exploited rather than accepted and experiencing compassion, it will breed feeling wounded and angry. This holding others accountable is truly an aspect of self-love. The key to all of this, that wonderful wholehearted life, is practice. Decide you are going to do one of these things and start practicing. At first, I can promise what you'll notice is all the places you don't do it. Keep practicing, and eventually it will become a habit. There's a lot to be said about being enough. And Dr. Brown does have a lot to say about that, which could make a whole talk. Just let me use an old phrase: God doesn't make any junk. And go back to being whole, complete, and perfect right now. A brilliant friend of mine has an observation: compare and despair. Someone else can appear to have everything we would like to have, yet we cannot know their inner world. I always think it would be wonderful to have someone come in and help me clean and organize and let go of things I don't need, yet I'm still the one that has to decide what it is. So it doesn't provide the freedom I would hope for. We're always reading news stories about celebrities who are having to go back into rehab, we think their lives are wonderful, or even those who, worse yet, take their own lives because they're so despondent. As is said in yoga, keep your practice on your mat. Or alternatively, there are 3 kinds of business: your business, my business, and God's business. And guess whose business I should be doing? Just my own. The only person it is valid to judge myself against is myself as I learn and grow and take on new challenges. If now I can do 6 push-ups and I could only do 3 last month, I deserve congratulations from you, even if you could drop and do 100. I am enough, and I choose where I want to grow and expand, and if I do, it is my life and I'm responsible for it. I was given that responsibility. Part of living that wholehearted life is listening to and knowing myself and trusting my intuition for my life versus looking elsewhere and judging. And that is one of the guideposts. There's a wonderful story about a famed rabbi of old who on his deathbed was sobbing, and those there asked him what he was sobbing about. And he said that he was not afraid that God would ask him why he was not Moses, but rather that he was afraid that God will ask him why he wasn't Rabbi Zusa. Shame and fear of being vulnerable and not accepted are also barriers to being authentic, to living authentically. Shame actually has some recognizable physical symptoms, such as fast heart rate, dry mouth, feeling hot, struggling to breathe, dry mouth, headache, feeling faint, or afraid of losing physical balance. Guilt is closely related. If we start to feel those symptoms, shame is at work. When we notice it, and we get better by practicing noticing it, we can work on our breathing and just staying physically present while planning to reach out to that compassionate someone. We may resist doing this, likely, yet it is a critical part of returning to wholeness. So that is where we need our courage to open our mouths and ask someone to listen. Now let's take a look at the first two of her guideposts. And those are, the first is to cultivate authenticity and let go of what people think. This is both a choice and a practice, and it does become easier with the practice. I have noticed that now that I'm older, I'm far less concerned about what other people think. Here's another tip. They're not responding to you. Whatever they say or do has to do with their own internal patterns and beliefs, not you, as important as you are in the universe. It does take courage to speak up for what is important, especially when you think others may not agree with you, or they may actually have an opposing point of view. I, oh dear, sorry. I've learned that if I had their life and I had had their experiences, I might well have that same point of view. Whatever they, so what is important is to be straight about your truth and loving, even if it looks dangerous. She has another tip here, DIG. It stands for get deliberate, stand your ground, be inspired and brave, and share your story. And for the G, get going, be active and engaged in this area in your life. And you might have noticed that she and I both love acronyms. Remember, connection is most and best experienced when we allow ourselves to be vulnerable and to be authentic. The next guidepost is self-compassion, letting go of perfectionism. This was what attracted me to the book. As a child, in school athletics and friends came easily to me. My parents set high standards for me, as in what got noticed on my report card was the A minus. I often catch myself contemplating a project and then thinking about, oh my goodness, it's going to take too much work and too much time. It's going to be too hard or cost too much. And especially if I would be doing it by myself. The need for perfection also keeps me from asking for help or partnership. It does take courage for any of us, and especially for me, to open my mouth and say, I cannot do this by myself and I need your help. Letting go of this is a big deal, and yet it provides freedom to be and to breathe. So here's a few things about perfectionism. You'll probably recognize some of them. It's self-destructive. It is non-existent, i.e., there's nothing that's deemed perfect by all. It is unattainable. It is more about perception than actuality. It's addictive and could lead to addictive behaviors. It's faulty logic. Think, if I were perfect, I would be lovable. And it leads to self-blame and the feeling of being not good enough. Wow. So why do we cling to it? It's I don't know, it's enticing and it's prevalent in our society. Dr. Brown interviewed people who actually lived from a place of authenticity and worthiness, and she discovered the following things in common regarding perfectionism. These people spoke about their imperfections without shame or fear and spoke honestly and tenderly. They were not quick to judge themselves or others. Their courage, compassion, and connection looked rooted in the way they treated themselves. How do you treat yourself? The three elements of self compassion are self kindness, to have empathy toward yourself in the face of failure and hurt, common humanity, to see suffering and feelings as part of the shared human experience. And last but not least, mindfulness, which requires balancing negative emotions so opinions are neither exaggerated nor bottled up. And it does not mean avoiding painful emotions and also not blowing it out of proportion or playing down its effects. Either way, kind of that middle way. The absence of self compassion brings about judgment. Judgment's kissing cousin is criticism. It's a crucial matter that affects our workplace and our home lives and our relationships, all of our relationships with friends and family and coworkers and other communities we may be part of. Bottom line, this is it. Listen up. Be kind and compassionate with ourselves and strive for excellence rather than perfection. Being wholehearted actually calls for a mutiny, a rebellion that says my story matters because I matter, irrespective of my imperfect, awkward, goofy, ridiculous, heartbreaking, but joyful human life. Be ready to be seen as resistance because choosing authenticity and worthiness in our world today is a clear call of defiance. What's wonderful is that we're seeing young people speak up and be heard in just amazing ways, taking on social causes and the environment and hunger and poverty and homelessness, all of these things. These are causes not to make wrong, but rather to take action to shift the environment such that they cannot exist. So you're not alone. Be your authentic self. Sing loudly, even if off key. And if it's really bad, maybe only in the car. Dance like no one's looking and laugh like nothing else matters. It doesn't. So, on that, any of this intrigued you and you want to engage further with it, please call the center or reach out to me. This class will have in-depth exercises and amazing discussions and will be a safe place to be vulnerable, fully human, perfectly imperfect. So thank you so much. Have a great rest of your evening, and I look forward to seeing you again sometime in the future.